Welcome back to the channel, and thanks for your support as always. Really appreciate it, folks. I think you can't defy the laws of physics. If you want a fast boat, you must keep it light, you must have long hulls, and you must have less wetted surface. And of course, you must have a lot of sail area. And I think a lot of information out there is it's economical with the truth, let's say. You're going to be using the working sails the most. So you want to see what the performance of a boat is with just the working sails. That's the true test of the performance of a vessel, without even mentioning flying sails. And especially if you're going to be short crewed, I think you need to think about that. There's the law of physics, and then there's the law of the ocean. And the law of the ocean states that you must keep it simple, you must keep it robust. And if it's simple and it's easy to maintain, then when you arrive, you're not going to spend your life fixing something, and you have a better chance of getting to where you were planning to go to. So you're not really going to have rosewood veneer on a GT3 racer, are you? You're expecting to see carbon fiber. So you must keep that in your mind here. But again, I think with this vessel, you get everything you need, including a generator, which is quite surprising. And historically, I think ORC weren't known for making those available. But again, this is a semi-custom boat. You can do what you want. This is an ORC57 from Ocean Rider Catamarans. And it's built from a yard that has a huge experience in composite work called Marsden Composites. And they've started a brand, and they've had a brand for a while. They've rebranded under ORC as the name. And you can see it's absolutely unmistakable, the intentions of this vessel. She is all out performance. And in my view, from what I've seen so far, I think it would be hard to see anybody that can beat this level of performance. So come on with me for a journey, and I'll show you around. Commensurate with the power of this vessel, you can see very significant chain plate. And let's remember, this boat is, the majority of it, the bulkheads, the dagger boards on this vessel, the coach roof, are all carbon. And as far as I understand them, they look like these are Kevlar shrouds. So I think that's standard on the normal boat. And you can see, so you've got stainless plate and then the Kevlar shrouds, which you would need with this extremely high performance rig. It's a carbon rig from Larima, but let's have a look at that in a little bit more detail in a few minutes. One of the other things that I've seen videos of this boat, and that's what really attracted my attention. I don't think they quite captured how high the sugar scoops are. You know, this is, you can see from the water length, you know, there's a couple of feet there. It's quite high, and I think that's excellent. Why? Because if you drop a dinghy, it means you're stepping into the dinghy. You're not trying to step up. And what I might add, I would say if it was my boat, which is not, I would probably add a cleat here just to tie the dinghy off on. And if you had one on the other side too, keep the dinghy nice and stable, once you deploy it, if you're in bad weather. But I think that this space also, I can see myself and Eva offshore, taking in fish and keeping the tuna blood and whatever in this space and not bringing them on board. You know, filleting fish, this strikes me as a pretty handy place and quite a big space. It's obviously a 57-foot boat, but quite shocking how much space there is here. You know, there's a nice place to work. It's a beautiful piece of carbon fiber. It's commensurate with the abilities of this shipyard. You know, the composite work is second to none. Personally, I don't think I've ever seen composite work to this standard, but why don't you keep watching the video and you make up your own mind about the quality. But for example, let's take this is obviously a tiller boat, and this is synonymous with this brand. In fact, even on their company logo, they show the tiller. And a lot of people will be asking, why go with a tiller? In my view, it's superior, particularly when you have a fast boat. First of all, you get more feedback. But let's just remember, with most normal helms, if you're in bad weather and you lose your autopilot or you want to take manual control, you have quite a few turns and you're using both arms like this quite a lot. And that can be, quite tiring actually if there's no autopilot. Whereas the beauty about a tiller is that you get immediate feedback and you can feel when the boat's overpowered or powering up yourself better. But the beauty is that you go from this position to here, so it's not as tiring, is it, to use your two hands? So I think, you know, I would see myself much more happy, and this would be far safer in my view. The other thing is these tillers seem to be linked on either side, and that would make sense to the rudder. So if one rudder should fail, you can just simply, you've got the redundancy of the other rudder, and you could probably unlink them. So I think that's one of the things we should take a look at and see. It's extraordinary space, I think you'll agree. I think this is very impressive, and when I look at it, I think one of the things you'd be thinking of with the tiller steering and this style of boat, you know, you'd be thinking gunboats and the Outremer's, and I think, you know, just from this kind of style and look, although it's very different in you know, to the, let's say, the more experienced or trained eye, I think this is unparalleled, this space. It's extraordinary. Like, I mean, if you look at it, this is your normal cockpit table. You could easily fit two of these. We're either standing with the camera. You could easily fit two large cockpit tables. And in fact, you might even be able to fit a removable one here if you were having big drinks parties, or, you know, if you wanted to have some fun while you were at anchor or whatever, you could probably have, you know, tables that you could hide. Quite extraordinary. There's a very nice Harken 83-speed winch, and I'd say, actually, you're probably, with the power of this rig, you'd probably look at a Harken 90. You'd want to factor that in. So, like all boats, I think if you go for a production boat, they tend to underspec the manual winch. You could have an electric on an 80, I think, but from having sailed this boat just yesterday, blown away. I probably actually, if it was just myself and Eva, I'd probably go for a Harken 90 as your primary. So remember, this does do your foresail sheets, and probably most importantly, having that extra power for a Jenica, which you're definitely going to get the power on this one. And then you've got your secondary winch here, and this you can control your dagger board, which you would expect on a performance cat to have dagger boards, and that gives you an incredible upwind performance, particularly on this boat. But you have a 3DI system, or sorry, I think it's just a 3D system for sheeting, and it's basically like a super barber hauler. So not only do you manage to get the sheet pulled down and get that better sail trim, but you can move the sheet in any direction that you want to manage the sail trim, which I think is extraordinary. I think the racing guys obviously do that all the time, but remember, this is a cruising boat. So having the choice, now you don't have to do that if you don't want. If you're tired, you could just leave the sail trim, you know, as you want. But it's pretty amazing being able to have the choice on a cruising boat. Impressive. In keeping with the super high performance of this vessel, you've got Ronstan rail here, and you've got a purchase system for the main sheets, and on a Traveller. That's a fairly classic system. Very, very nice quality equipment here. This is the best of the best, and yeah, I think it makes sense when you see the power and the reach of how you can get the Traveller on the mainsail and get that power in. It makes sense. Something which I think is pretty handy too. You know, obviously you're never going to have a jammer closed on a main or a Traveller in general. You shouldn't do that anyway, but on these very powerful vessels, what they have is a setup where, you know, you can have your main sheet or the Traveller in a cam cleat, and these are pretty good quality cams as well. You've got to keep them clean, but they're pretty good. And what that means is, you know, if you're really on the edge of performance or a gust comes in and has really got you, you can just dump it, and the power is out of it, and then everything's safe. Pretty handy. I'd be really interested. I'm very much like, you know, having rudder redundancy, and part of that, I'm going to have a little inspection here. It's probably a little bit rude when somebody's been so kind to me to let me have a look at their boat, but for the benefit of everyone, I think we're we have, you can see the rudder linkage here between the two rudders and the helms, you know, the tillers. And I'd want to be having a look at how this system works completely and making sure that I have complete access. I like this a lot. I think this is an excellent idea because I can simply just detach. If I have a smashed rudder on one side, or you know, God knows what could have happened, I can simply just attach that rudder and steer with the other one. Obviously, you're going to have to, you know, calm down a little bit with the power, but it's nice being able. I think that's pretty handy. I think what I personally would like is there may be a reason why they haven't done it. I see there's an electronic piping, but I think why not, rather than that small port, why not just have that whole panel? You know, you can open up the whole lot and get, you know, better access. And obviously this is a semi-custom yard, and I'm pretty sure they can do anything you want. So yeah, that would be nice. On top of this, it's been raining here, so you have, you know, your cushions, your cockpit cushions, and the classic stuff. But again, this non-slip decking, I really like it. It's very, very nice. But I think something that you probably wouldn't catch on camera quite easily is, you know, look how this is quite high. And that means, you know, first of all, you've got, when you're working on winches and stuff, nobody's going to be, you know, there's not the risk of falling overboard. It's quite an enclosed cockpit. So, you know, you could easily do exploration type sailing in this vessel, easily, if you have the appetite for it. I'm in the helm station, obviously, here on the port side. And this is, it seems, I think to a lot of people, this would seem quite exposed. And I think you've got to understand that on a boat of this power, you really want to be feeling the apparent wind in your face, because any gusts, you can account for that increase in power, and you want to be able to hold the sheets so that you can dump them pretty quickly if you need to. There's a cam cleat in front of me here, cam cleat over there. So from this helm station, I can dump the cleats, get a good look, good view of all the traffic or anything, any obstacles in front of me. And I think this is smart, actually. It's very different. What you could do is you could probably put a little cover for the sun on the seat, or whatever you want to do at anchor. That's not really that relevant, but I think putting some sort of hood here, just, you know, or a sun hat can do the job. But I think it would be quite nice just to get a bit of cover from that. But this whole setup, these NKE instruments, I think I've talked about them before on previous videos. You know, this is what all the Imika 60 boats and everybody around me is usually using, unless they're sponsored by someone else, of course. But I think if you ask anybody in the business of offshore sailing, if you had a choice, you stick with these NKE instruments, and they don't work off a normal NMEA backbone, but I can get into that later. You can connect them to, as you can see here, there's the shipyard, I think, has chosen a Ray Marine chart plotter, and you can pretty much do whatever you want. But yeah, Ray Marine, from what I hear, pretty good. And another interesting point, you've got the GPS, so it's a proper quality GPS fix, which will mean your autopilot, particularly on a super fast boat like this, your autopilot's going to be more accurate. Handy that you've got these, they're kind of a digital Morse, this is called, and your throttle, so you've obviously got the two engines. And the two engines on this boat, I'd be a lot more relaxed about. They're Yanmar, first of all, which we know they've got a good history. They're a turbo diesel engine, and there's an electronic control of the throttle. So there'll be some wireless control. And what that means is, you know, you can put one of these Morse stations inside as well if it's bad weather and you've got the sail down and you don't want to get wet. But you can also have one from each helm. I would want to be looking at some sort of redundancy for that, and I'd want to look into if I was sailing this boat or living on this boat, I think it would be quite nice, although it stops you having the three stations, having something already prepared in case these digital options fail. Maybe on one helm station you could have a manual backup that you just connect whenever you have a problem, if you have a problem with these at all. But don't have any experience with them. They're Yanmar. They have a Yanmar brand in them. But to me, they look very similar to the ZF ones. So maybe they are. I don't know. I'd have to research that a little bit more. although you wouldn't do it, and you would be you'd have a lot of weather helm, but you can see that the helm is all the way over to the side. So what you're really going to do is that would be your maximum, maximum point of turn. And what you're really doing on these super performance boats, that's about your maximum range there. Usually, what you might do is you might use this for manoeuvring, but very rarely on these nice cats. And when you have two engines, once you lose the water speed over your rudder, you're generally just going to bin that off or keep them the center line, and then manoeuvre with these. And what that means is you don't need a bow thruster. And that's one less thing to fail. Handy. I would prefer it if I had a choice, not using bow thrusters at all. That also means that you're not affecting the waterline, and that also therefore means that you're not affecting performance. So by using two engines without a thruster, job done. You might be wondering what these guys are for. These are just manual bilge pumps, which are this is an ocean class. It's a C class A vessel, so you can take this offshore. That's the intention. This boat is straight up performance ocean crossing, and so as part of that you need to have a manual bilge pump backup. Quite interesting. You've got access here as well. These are watertight compartments. You've got access to all of that stuff. I think that's quite it's kind of essential, really. But it's nice that a shipyard's actually thought of that. So I think all of the folks that I've met here, really nice team. They're all either racing or they're offshore sailors in some nature or form, and it shows in the way that they think about things. They're not only building a nice boat, but building a nice boat that can be maintained by an owner operator. Seems smart to me. Something else I think is pretty nice are that if you look, that when I come up here, I come up on this deck, there's not really, unless I'm going to go up to the sail or fix something where I have a problem, there's not really much reason for me to be standing above this master cabin. And what that means is that somebody that's trying to get some rest down below, you're not stamping above them. And I think if you have winches, manual winches, it helps everybody on board get a little bit of rest. Having electric winches is convenient for the person using them, but not so relaxing for everybody else on board. They're quite loud. So you no matter, even if you try and do some sound deadening, you still hear it all the way throughout a boat. So nice at night time to be able to go back to manual. You've got Dyneema coming out your ears in this boat, and all these quality, beautiful blocks. But also you've got carbon davits, and what's quite interesting is it's nice to have carbon, and the solar panels are quite low. Check this out. I think this is quite smart. So you're going to want to have solar as much as you can possibly get in a boat, within limits, obviously. But the other thing is that you can access that solar and clean it. When you clean solar, its performance goes up significantly, and it's ventilated. And coincidentally, it also means that you stop water getting in your dinghy. In this instance, it's pretty nice. Also, it means that because the coach roof is higher than the solar panels, it means that you're not affecting the upwind performance of the boat. Smart. Got a lifeline here. This is handy. Got the dagger board. Clip in here. Get up to the reefing points. Wow, some super nice equipment. But this is all. I'm walking on a carbon roof at the moment. That, for me, is just, you can see it. You can't see it, but Eva's smiling behind the camera because it's super nice being able to get into to pack away your main without having to climb up the mast. That's a nice idea. So what these guys have done is, they've got a small bag underneath for your lazy jacks for catching your main, and then when you're done, you can just put this secondary bag over the top. And that strikes me as a pretty nice solution, because, after a couple of years of offshore sailing, these bags go pretty quickly, and it's a real mission, I can tell you, to take all the whole sail bag to get it repaired or whatever. Whereas I don't think it's going to be that hard just to take this sheet, this entire sheet, and either make a new one or just get it repaired. I like that. That's pretty nice. And we'll go through the rigging in a few seconds, but while I'm here, you can see this is the three-dimensional management of your foresails. You know, the sheets on your foresails. Pretty incredible, and that means that's it's like a super duper barber hauler. You know, you can control at any angle, you know, in a three-dimensional axis to get that perfect sail trim, particularly at the top of your sails, well, where the wind is faster. So yeah, really nice. I haven't seen that on something, and it's, the other thing is I've seen it on other boats, but it's not quite as simple as that. And you'll notice the runs are pretty good too. So they've thought of these things. It's obviously built by sailors because, you know, there are no super tight turns, and that means, you know, with time, as the blocks get a little bit dirty or whatever, the blocks aren't working too hard, and so as the blocks get dirty, what can happen, especially with furling lines, you find that the winches are starting to have to work a little bit harder. Well, on this boat, you don't really need a winch to furl them because the furlers are so good. You can stand up in the foredeck if you want. You can, of course, run it down to the cockpit if you want. And that's what's super cool about this boat. You have the choice. If you want to furl on the deck, then you can do it. If you want to furl on the cockpit, you can do it too. And it's all set up to do that, you see? You've got everything, you've got the choice. And that is super nice. It's already from a standard position, ready to roll for what you want. There's no danger I'm going to break anything with this ridiculously strong carbon roof. But what immediately jumps out at me is that you could basically put up as much solar as you want here. I reckon from my experience with Carry On, these are probably around about, I'd say this is about a 150 watt panel. I'll check up later. These ones happen to be from a company called Seatronic. These walk-on panels generally aren't ventilated, and they're not quite as efficient as the glass ones that sit over the dinghy. But if Eva shows you this deck space, because let's remember, you can walk in these, right? So you can just cover this entire coach roof. So you could, I reckon you might be able to even get more than 4 kilowatts on top of this roof, which is, you know, that's an insane amount of solar. This is a huge space. The other thing is that the coach roof is curved like a muscle car, and that's great for just, you know, the water runoff. So keep the cleaning to a minimum. It'd be quite nice, maybe you could investigate something like a water catchment system and avoid you know, if you were under anchor in you know, brackish water or in the cities where you can't use your water maker, might be quite cool to investigate to see if you could do a water catchment system for rainwater into, let's say, a separate day tank that you could then filter out and use for washing wetsuits or drinking even, if you've got a nice filter. While I'm up here, I'm just noticing there's one of my not so favorite hatches. This is Goyo, and I'm not sure that I would be that excited about installing that hatch on this incredible boat. I think one of the first things I'd be looking at is changing this hatch if I had the opportunity to buy a boat like this. But what I notice is these guys you can see the level of detail they've gone to make it easier on the hatches and to keep your seals lasting longer. They've put the hatch flush and with a groove for draining the water. You can see these guys have thought of everything. You would only know that if you're an experienced sailor, that you don't want water coming under pressure against the seal around the hatch. Pretty cool. So without going into this too much, I think you can see this is a Lorima carbon mast. Now as you go to these more performance boats, to get the power and to get the bigger masts, you're going to have to go carbon. And I don't think you could go too far wrong with the company Lorima. They really take their business very seriously. And what I noticed as well, you've got some of these Antal blocks, and a lot of that Antal kit I found very good and very dependable myself, to be totally honest. You'll recognize this one from some of my other videos. And these are higher spec than the ones that I've used on Carry On. And you can see they've set up, yeah, it's a reefing point here, and you'll look, that's exactly the same style of one that I have and Carry On. Yeah, so all pretty incredible stuff. These are Carver cars on the mast, and Carver is a company, I think I'd quite like to go and look at some of their stuff while we're here in L'Oreal. But yeah, it's pretty nice Rolls-Royce type stuff. I think what is pretty cool about this company is that they've built and own their first boat. This boat is not sold yet, although it will soon be for sale. This boat is used as a prototype for the factory to perfect their future lines. Now, I can't think of a single other boat company that does that. That's pretty honourable. They're not taking the order and getting the cash in for selling hull number one. It's never the sharpest thing to buy the hull number one unless you're super excited about getting it. And that's why, because there will be some tweaks and things that need to be done. So I think you've got to acknowledge that from the shipyard, their intention for safety and quality. They've held on to the first boat and of this series, the 57. Pretty cool thinking. So yeah, you want to have a look at. You'll probably almost certainly have hooks and your own setup. I think the person that would buy this boat is going to have a bit more experience, so they're going to have equipment and like running cars and stuff that they like. And I'm sure the shipyard can put pretty much whatever jammer or whatever equipment you like as far as running rigging and standing rigging. I think standing rigging you wouldn't need to change too much, but I'm sure you could even have a rotating mast if you wanted. But I wouldn't really bother for a cruising boat. It's a bit too much hassle rotating mast. I'd just stick with this puppy. It's a good job. Just having a look at some of these. These are all Carver, part of the Carver furling systems. Pretty nice, and they're quick release systems. I think this is what's quite interesting is that to save weight, I figure, up the top of the mast, they're using very thin Dyneema halyards inside the mast, so that reduces your weight above, having thin halyards just to pull them up. And then they have, I'm pretty certain, yeah, they've got hooks. So hooks at the top of the mast. So what that means is once you engage and connect, raising your foresails, you've connected in, and you have no tension then on the jammers and stuff here. So what that means is that the power and the strength of the sail is on the mast in the right direction, and also you don't have the weight of having these strong, these bigger lines, for hoisting. And then the jammers, they don't need to be as quite as high as a backup. So yeah, you generally get that only in racing boats, really, that consideration for that level of weight and performance. Pretty cool. To hoist the main, so your main halyard, yeah. to take the mainsail, the grand voile, yeah. you hoist it with this main.
Use this one, and okay. Then the Cunningham for the.
So you have the Cunningham on the secondary
yeah.
winch. Okay, that's super. So
and then you can use for the tack line.
Okay. Yep.
To take it, so you can use the two.
So what that means is, it means you can do a maneuver or a reef. You have a winch for the foresails. You have a winch for the halyards, for the mainsail. It gives you flexibility and freedom and redundancy. Sure. That means if you really want to push the boat, and you say you had maybe a crew as well, and you were racing the boat, you can now
work together
as a team.
Yeah.
And this is a laminate sail. It's pretty obvious it's a laminate.
DFI.
It's the Delphi range from Incidents. Okay, and is that standard on the 57, or do you get it? Is there a standard sail wardrobe that comes in?
The standard is in ZZ Ultra.
Okay, ZZ Ultra.
An option.
So this is an option, an optional extra. On this boat, there's an even more spicy sail wardrobe on this, and I presume you have a J1, J2, and a J3,
sure.
and a Jenniker.
Jenniker.
Two Jennikers.
Caplage Jenniker.
So the
big one and
so at the top of this the main. So that's the tet, no? That's at the head of the mast, and then you have a section for slightly higher winds. Sure. So you have two Jennikers, 3 foresails, and this very tasty. Wow. Yeah. She's a real beauty. And I can see also that I've touched on, you have your Ray Marine, I presume it's a Quantum 2 radar, right?
This one, yes.
Quantum 2, yeah. This is a quick windlass, and this looks like 10mm chain. It's huge, cavernous chain locker. You wouldn't want to be carrying, in my view, 60 meters of chain would do the job, and then you could splice on some nylon if you're in a really deep place. But pretty good setup, and I'm sure there's some sort of system to wash, and yeah, you can see the remote here, look. So it looks like an interesting, they run that along the longeron. And just having a look at this system, it's a massive trampoline. Elba would love this one. But yeah, they've got a spade anchor here, and so I'd probably take the next model up on that spade if it was me. But these guys are probably not really anchoring that much at the moment with this boat. But just having a look around, I'll just catch with my eye. You can see these. This is the 12 carver furler, and this is for your J1 or Genoa. But you can see the setup and the intention. Again, this is where you would connect your furler for the jib. So I just don't know why other boats don't incorporate this. If you'll notice, there's nothing else at the moment in this forward triangle. You've just got this, your J1, your Genoa. And look at this when you go and buy another boat. If you can't remove the inner stay, what that means is you're going to get a little bit more tired on the sailing on the nice days. We all want to go out sailing when it's relaxing weather, right? But if you have a J2 here or a jib here all the time, what that means is you're going to have to furl in this guy every time you want to tack or jibe. Little bit irritating. So again, it's in the same ethos of this boat. You can make the choice of what you want to do. So you've got J1, J2, and J3. And so if you know you're going to go offshore and there's going to be foul weather, well, you're probably going to put up your J2 anyway before you leave. And then you've got your J3. I'd say they probably can make you even a J4 if you wanted to go to the level of insanity and, start, being out there in some, super nasty winds. Probably not a bad idea, actually. And if you've got a short-handed couple, and you just need to relax and take it easy, you could hoist up your foresail and just probably run off that without even having to keep the main up. But that's quite boat specific. You'd need to do a little bit of testing as the weather got a little bit worse and see what way the boat settled, if you had the main up or not. You see, it's another thing to handle. Sometimes quite nice and quite easy just being able to deal with only the foresail in foul weather. I want to check that one out. Again, you've got all these. There's exactly the same sort of setup I've had for these. I really like these ceramic rings, and the way they've set it up is on Dyneema with some lashing onto the longeron. But you can see the anchor runs down. They've got they've set up a nice swivel. No expense spared. But this is standard. This is standard on this boat, and that's just extraordinary. You're getting carbon fiber longeron. You're getting all this level of kit that, to be honest, as soon as I go on a cruising boat, I'd just do that anyway. Lash, and even with the reefing points, you can see in my previous videos that I've done that on the reefs. So that's pretty insane. On a standard boat, you've got all this super nice ceramic rings with Dyneema. This running rigging is all Dyneema and Carver stuff. Really, really nice. And I'm also, as I'm sitting here on the trampoline, just looking around, it's not set up at the moment, presumably because they don't take it under anchor too much, but you definitely want to set up a snubber system. See the bow in there? You see the little ring over here? In there? You'd want to be connecting your snubber to that, and then connecting that to the chain here, so that you made an effective snubber system. You could bring this back further, obviously, and set up get your spinnaker and your flying sails, your Code Zero, your Jenica, all of that stuff. Pretty cool that you could set that up. When it's calm, wouldn't be that bad being up here, in my view. Amazing. Have a look back. I noticed for your flying sails, you've got that quick release and interaction with the Carver system. So that's top of the line kit, really, isn't it? Carver is pretty much, that system is pretty much, you see it on all the race boats, really.
Yeah.
Yeah. And these are very substantial blocks running along the longeron. These are ront stands, so there's a mix of hardware. And I find that really interesting, that because the guys that are building and sailing this boat after it's built, he's as part of the design team, he's also a sailor. And the team might decide, their opinion is to use this block for this thing, and to use, the halyards or whatever. They've taken the best kit from across the marine sector and said, rather than, choosing one brand, they choose the best of all the brands, and it's smart. I think that's, that shows the experience. And you can see, let's have a look and see what's in here. Oh, wow. So this looks like a skipper cabin. Wow, look at this. My goodness. Wow. Yeah, there's a toilet under here as well. My goodness. So you've got a sink, toilet. Oh yeah, so this is actually a shower as well if you want. This is waterproof, I'd say. So quite nice being able to have a quick shower down in privacy. You've got a loo, yeah, and you've even got its own little tank. As of course, with all these boats, you've got a bit of access. Yeah, you've got access to all the seacocks there. Pretty impressive. Let's have a look. You've got power, USB, just a little bit of storage space for your bag, I guess. That looks like it would be a bulkhead there. That's a bulkhead. So yeah, you're not going to have a problem getting high quality captains when you've got a space like this. If you want backup or you want somebody to charter this boat for you, and run it as a business, you're not going to have a problem getting good quality staff to manage this. I think you could probably, if you were an owner operator like myself, and you wanted to live aboard, I think this would make an amazing workshop. Look at the space. I'm 6 foot tall, and you can see that that's more than a 6 foot long bed, and it's pretty much a queen berth. But you could probably, do a pipe berth in here if you wanted to have it as both. I reckon you could do a pipe cot, something that fall down maybe. I don't know. You could probably have a look at that, but yeah, this would strike me as an obvious place to have a workshop. Pretty much what I have on Carry On. This would be a pretty nice place to do that, I'd say. Let's have a look. Just a shower and all your bits. So there's your shower head. Just use that as your sink head as well as your shower. And then, yeah, this has gone for a manual classic toilet. Job done. Good. Nice. Like it. Good let it. That's a pretty nice sail locker. What you probably would do is have your J2 and J3 set up on the trampoline and tied down while you're underway, and so that you have them freely available when you want to get them. It depends on what you're going into weather-wise, but that trampoline is so big you could probably have 4 sail bags with the sails in them on the trampoline. We know the windlass is here, right? You've got the windlass and the chain locker, and on a performance boat you'd be wise to try and keep the amount of chain to about 60, I'd say, would do the job. But if that windlass fails, these very big winches that are used for raising the halyards can also be used. Because you've got 2, it'll be pretty quick. Look, here's the access to the chain here, look. There's the access to the chain along the long run. You could easily set up a pad eye, there's one there already, and a snatch block, or in an emergency, basically, you'll find an easy solution should the windlass fail. It's exactly like an aircraft wing, and in keeping with these guys, their composite know-how. I don't know if you can see it on camera either. Literally, it's absolutely flawless. It's perfectly symmetrical. It's absolutely flawless, and that's carbon. That's a carbon fibre dagger board. So you've definitely got, you would need to with the speeds of this boat. It's insane. It's good to see somebody's thought about this in the current times. Don't really see this much in boats, but it's actually that's a direct access to the holding tanks. This is obviously going to be the engine compartment. Just before I go there, I'm noticing they have, okay, so we know it's Yanmar engines, and that looks very like a B&G Triton 2 display, which has been repurposed for something else, and that'll give you your engine revs or whatever. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if it works. I have to say that the Triton 2 and Carry On is about one of the only things from B&G that hasn't broken yet, which B&G is owned by Navico, but yeah, they're using a digital display for engine revs, so that'll probably work through something like a CAN bus system. And that kind of makes sense if you've got those digital helms, the Morses, which control your throttle, and you're using a CAN bus, this CAN bus system anyway. You can get a lot of information out from the engine, and so they're using digital display to show that. And just while I'm here, actually, I'm noticing that the anchor windlass is here as well, so you have a remote, which you'd really like. It's really nice to have one of those. I definitely think that's a must in most boats, to be honest, to be able to you know, in case something happened, you know, you can deploy and lift the anchor chain while being at the helm in control of the boat on your own. So quite often when we're underway, myself and Eva might be preparing, putting stuff away, and I'm already getting the boat ready, you know, moving, and doing that all on our own, so we can cover more jobs more quickly before we depart. So this is obviously the engine bay. And I think move these lines out of the way. So you've got the breaker, inverter, you've got generator, starter, you've got the engine starter, 12 volts. You've got your fuses, which are quite accessible for those, which is nice. Pretty cool. You've got this is unique. I've not seen this before, where you have a breaker just for the charge controller. If you get a short or something on the solar panels, or you get hit by lightning, you're not going to destroy your charge controller. Got a nice compass. It's in a good position. Water muffler from Vetus, and of course, probably one of the key things. This is actually a 5 kilowatt whisper power generator. So despite what people think, you can actually get a generator on ORC catamarans, and what that means is that you'll easily be able to charge or run at 16,000 BTU monoblock aircon. And I'd say there may be even a chance that you can run the aircon off the solar, because there's so much coach roof space in this boat that you'll be able to run a unit off the solar energy during a very hot day. So it's a bit dark in here, so I'm going to use my telephone as a torch. And you know, this is a 57 horsepower Yanmar, and she's set with the sail drive. You know, it's basically backwards, which makes no difference. But you've got a nice cover for the belts. You can access all of this from, you know, beneath the VIP bed. So I'm in the starboard hull engine at the moment, and you can access in the roof space there. You can access the other side of the engine, which means that you can, if you look over here, you can see that this is the Yanmar's control system for, it's basically the electronic throttle cable. So you control forward, you know, neutral and reverse electronically from, you know, from the Morses, and that means you can have even 3 Morses, one at the nav station. What would be quite nice, I think, if this was my boat, I'd quite like to have a backup, you know, a physical backup, that if that should fail, I just automatically attach, you know, another cable. I think that should be possible, and I'm sure somebody's thought of that. But the beauty is, of course, this is a, you know, a semi-production boat or semi-custom boat, so you can basically add and remove things as you see fit. So yeah, pretty cool space. Happy with that, and got access to, you know, the fuel filters and the strainer over here. So yeah, I'd be happy with that. And you know, there's quite a large opening in that bed to get access there. So it doesn't seem like anything that I'd be uncomfortable with here. Loads of filters to get easy access. So good stuff. Great. Again, another cool thing, you've got one tank either side, having 2 separate tanks, nice redundancy. But what it also means is that you can polish fuel, and because there's less fuel to polish in each tank, you can polish the fuel by setting up a system. And the shipyard will do that for you, I'm told, that they can set up an automatic fuel polishing system. Particularly nice if you're sailing places like, let's say, Mexico. Nice to polish your fuel before it even gets to your filters anyway.